what we all need. Essential fatty acids and lots of protein. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Toasted, roasted, salted or dehulled. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Omega-3, omega-6 and GLA.
Tasty hemp seed is what we all need.
Make them into smoothies, make them into ice cream.
Tasty hemp seed is what we all need.
Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need. Hemp, me say hemp seed. Tasty hemp seed is what we all need.
The point is that hemp itself, having so many uses and being a miracle plant, is all about sustainability. And right now we have what in this world, and particularly in the United States, what I like to call the beast, which is the petroleum, the nuclear, the pesticide, the whole petrochemical, mining quagmire, the industries that are destroying Mother Nature and getting giant subsidies, tax breaks and everything at the same time. We need something sustainable. Obviously our economy is heading in a horrible direction. It's sustainable, it makes sense for the farmers, it makes sense for the environment. That's why I'm into the hemp movement, because I see all the alternatives, and I'd like to see the power get out from the hands of the beast and into the hands of the people.
I don't like the marijuana connection in anybody's mind. I raised 3 boys during the 60s, and I can tell you as a family we had trouble with marijuana, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I've got 13 grandchildren, and I don't want them to have anything to do with it. But I think industrial hemp is a crop that the farmers need. We need it from the environmental perspective. We need it to help stabilize greenhouse gases. We need to use it as a feedstock for biorefineries so we can reduce our dependence on imported oil and petroleum products. We just need it. It's a good crop, and we ought to get going, and General McCaffrey's going to figure that out.
Well, I think most farmers realize the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana. I mean, I'm a 67-year-old grandmother. I am not interested in promoting or legalizing drugs. Hemp is an industrial crop and should be under the regulations of the United States Department of Agriculture.
The Canadian farmers are raising this crop above a border that we've determined, and they ship the finished product, or they ship the raw product even, across our border, and it's processed in the United States.
I work in drug and alcohol a great deal, as I'm sure many of you are aware, in my prevention work, and it occurs to me somewhat hilarious in a way that if you started outlawing everything that looked like a drug, we'd have to outlaw powdered sugar, because you cannot tell the difference between powdered sugar and cocaine by looking at it.
Why is it that everything that is good for our bodies, our communities, and our planet called an alternative? An alternative to what? It's an alternative to deforestation at an unprecedented rate, extinction of species at an unprecedented rate. It's like we have to change our languaging and not allow them to call hemp the alternative. Hemp is the solution.
It's odd that in 30 countries around the world, including Canada and France and Germany and England, and all of these countries, including Russia, they're able to grow industrial hemp, and here we're relegated to these test crops, like in Kentucky. So it's odd, land of the free and the home of the brave, that we may be brave, but we sure aren't free.
I don't think this is sending a mixed message to our young people, because frankly I think our young people are smarter, and I think our young people can easily discern the difference. Industrial hemp gets made into shirts, pants, surfline clothes, into even surfboards. They'd probably be awesome surfboards out of industrial hemp. They know the difference. It's the parents and maybe the bureaucracy that doesn't know. And I'd say, hey, get smart, guys. Industrial hemp is not a drug. And don't try to pawn it off as a drug and try to claim that we're misleading the youth. The youth know better. It's you guys that don't.
1,960 square foot split level adobe house, which has 60% of its volume made from industrial hemp. We have hempcrete blocks and panels, which were made with a formula originating from France. Mix it up and pour it in a form, and you have a strong, cohesive building block. We also have hemp fiber used in our stucco mix, replacing the nylon filaments that keep the surface from cracking. We used hemp for our insulation. We have hemp shingles made in Canada, guaranteed for 50 years. They look just like cedar shake shingles, and they're easy to work with and very strong. I'm happy with this plant. I'm happy with what we're doing, and look forward to continuing despite the objections of people that have no knowledge, connection, or interest in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and Indian country in general.
There was a reason that the powers that be put that plant here, and to eradicate it from all over the planet is not exactly what the big guy had in mind, if you know what I mean. I mean, he puts it in there, and why should we take it out? We should use it for what it's worth. If you don't want to use it, that's your business, but if it is a useful product that grows organically out of the soil, check it out.
You know, there's a really good argument that one could make without ever growing any hemp in Kentucky, any industrial hemp in Kentucky. But if you aerial seeded the seed that you bought from Europe, let's say you just went to Europe and bought a grocery bag full of industrial hemp, and you took a helicopter and you threw it, or you flew it through the river bottoms of eastern Kentucky, where the DEA says that there's lots of illegal marijuana growing. Let's say you did that, and you allow that industrial grade to grow all by its own, without any farmer growing it culturally, okay? And that pollinates that illegal trade. Well, let's say that one generation passes. The illegal grower automatically has half the potency. In another generation, he has half of that half. So that in 3 generations, you can basically eliminate the outdoor illegal marijuana trade just by aerial seeding it.
Society is concerned with global warming and carbon emissions. Buildings and building construction account for more than half of all CO2 emissions. If we are to reduce emissions, we need to make buildings energy efficient, but we also need to use low-energy methods of achieving this. Natural materials not only help to make buildings energy efficient, but also they can make buildings healthier and function better. Natural materials generally have a much lower carbon footprint than conventional building materials. Most conventional materials consume a great deal of fossil fuel energy to produce and therefore contribute to CO2 emissions.
We've been trying to find a method of building that's low carbon and energy efficient, simple and affordable, that uses natural materials. Hemp and lime mixed together seems to answer all of those needs. This technique of construction was developed in France about 10 years ago and used to a small extent there, but actually didn't really take off for some reason. we found out about the technology, did our own research. A number of people came together in the UK and we decided it was something that was commercially viable, and it's taken off to a large extent here. There are probably about 50 hempcrete buildings all over the UK, ranging from a brewery warehouse, a £20 million project, down to individual houses and even people's sort of summer houses in their garden. I mean, it's been used for all sorts of different forms of construction. Well, this building, apart from the fact that it's a small house that's for my father to live in, it's a demonstration of this technique so that we can prove that it works, we can show it to other people and to other architects, other professionals and builders, so that if you want to convince them of the technique, they can actually come along and have a look at it and see it in the flesh.
It's quite unique, hasn't been done before in Northern Ireland. So this is us able to test both the processing and the complications and detailing on a building which is for ourselves. The hemp research project was funded by DEFRA to look into hemp, which is a crop, being used as a natural insulation, but here cast with hemp. So this has led to a publication. A book has just recently been published by ourselves and other co-writers. So this is quite timely that this building is now happening exactly at this point. And in fact, we'll probably be even reviewing some of the details that are in that book, because we very much have a hands-on understanding of using the material now. We started the superstructure, that's the work above ground, 4 months ago. We started off with quite traditional footings, a normal strip footing around the building, and brought it up in block work up to subfloor level, unavoidably using cement, which we had to do and be pragmatic about that. And then we started the primary structure, and what we decided to do was to start off actually with the principal, the posts and the beams holding the roof structure, to end up with a sheltered framework. And that was followed by the stud work around the perimeter, which is then being cast around with the hemp and lime. The hemp needs a sort of rethinking in terms of what we call traditional building construction, because we've been using a cavity block construction for the last century really, and a lot of plastics in buildings. So this is a monolithic construction, and the insulation properties of the hemp are both that it's a good insulant but also has thermal mass. Monolithic means that it's one material right through. It does have a stud wall buried in the middle of it, but it isn't layers of separate materials. So even timber frame construction, which is favoured by a lot of people who are trying to improve insulation, has too many layers and too many different processes, and that's what we're trying to reduce. This is the primary structure carrying the roof load. That's Douglas fir, locally sourced, and that was constructed at the beginning of the process. Here you can see the tail end of the shuttering, which is yet to be removed, and this section it has been taken away. This is cast just a few days ago and still soft to the touch but firm. You can see it's solid enough. This is the stud wall that's sitting in the middle of that 300 thick lime casting, so that's permanent with some noggings, cross noggings for stiffness. And here we're back to a section that's not finished being cast yet. This is the base of the posts here with a rigid fixing, so we got rigidity in the whole building frame from the start, sitting on its own padstone and the subfloor level there below. This is the radon barrier coming up, tucked into the DPC, and we have the electrics that we had to put this ducting in ahead of the hemp being cast. Here we have one of the electric sockets which we've cast into the wall because it wouldn't be practical to try and chase this material, so you've got to cast them in at the time. And then here we've got the window reveal, which is lined with the Heraclith board, which is a permanent shutter, and that would stay in place.
The main thing that architects want to know about this is how well does it work from a thermal point of view. So a 300mm thick wall like the one we're building here will provide good enough insulation to meet Part L of the building regulations, depending on whether you're in Northern Ireland or England.